Early in the history of Judah, an era of dark transition begins under the reign of King Manasseh. Following the death of his father, Hezekiah, Manasseh aggressively reversed previous religious reforms. He systematically turned the nation of Judah back to the practice of idolatry. This regression had specific casualties. The established religion of Israel was entirely abandoned, and the practice of Sabbath worship was discarded. At the same time, the nation's leadership shifted their priorities. The governors and priests became singularly driven by greed and the rapid accumulation of wealth. This toxic combination of widespread idolatry and unchecked leadership greed set Judah on a direct and unavoidable trajectory toward destruction by the Babylonian Empire. Against this historical backdrop, the 56th chapter of Isaiah presents a stark contrast. The text redefines what it means to participate in the divine covenant, placing the faithful inclusion of marginalized groups directly against the tragic negligence of Judah's spiritually blind leadership. To understand how this standard is applied, we have to look directly at the prophet's systematic breakdown of the law. In moments of impending historical destruction, superficial titles offer no protection. God's judgment strips away status to evaluate the literal obedience to his most basic laws. The chapter begins in Isaiah 56, verse 1. "Thus saith the Lord, keep ye judgment and do justice." To keep judgment is a direct mandate to observe the law and the established commandments of God. The instruction to do justice requires individuals to be strictly fair and equitable in all their dealings with others. The verse continues, stating that salvation is near to come. Historically, the first major fulfillment of this promise was the eventual redemption and return of the exiles from Babylon. This prophetic promise of redemption establishes a pattern of divine intervention that recurs across history. The same language used to describe the return from Babylon finds a parallel in latter-day horizons, specifically with the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. For the faithful, this fulfillment is evident in 1948, when surrounding nations failed to eradicate the Jews during the defense of their newly re-established state. When we see the outcasts of Israel returning to their homeland in the 20th century, we are seeing the tangible execution of the prophecy's promise that salvation would be revealed. Moving to verse 2, the text reads, "Blessed is the man that doeth this, that keepeth the Sabbath from polluting it." The blessing is highly specific to those who actively protect the Sabbath day from desecration. The preservation of the nation through major geopolitical shifts is the documented result of theological promises made to those who observe the Sabbath. To understand why the Sabbath carries this weight, we look at this vector timeline mapping the major biblical covenants. According to Exodus 31, verse 13, the Lord commands, "Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you." Continuing in verses 16 and 17, the instruction expands, "Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath, for a perpetual covenant." It spans continuously from the 6 days of creation into eternity. Isaiah reinforces this in chapter 58, verses 13 and 14. "If thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, then shalt thou delight thyself in the Lord." Personal righteousness and receiving the heritage of Jacob branch directly from this central line of Sabbath observance. The anchor for this is the 4th commandment in Exodus 20, verses 8 through 10. "Remember the Sabbath day, to keep it holy." It serves as a rigid standard of obedience that explicitly sets God's people apart from surrounding nations. Ezekiel 20, verse 12 reiterates this function. "Moreover, also I gave them my Sabbaths, to be a sign between me and them." The observance is a demonstrative, visible sign of faithfulness. Conversely, the penalty for breaking this law is severe. Jeremiah 17, verse 27 warns, "But if you will not hearken unto me to hallow the Sabbath day, then I will kindle a fire in the gates thereof, and it shall devour the palaces of Jerusalem." Ezekiel 20, verse 13 confirms this historical precedent. "My Sabbaths they greatly polluted. Then I said, I would pour out my fury upon them in the wilderness, to consume them." These texts establish the Sabbath as the factor that determines a nation's outcome. When observed, it leads to the heritage of Jacob. When polluted, it results in consumption by fire. Returning to Isaiah 56, verse 3 reads, "Neither let the son of the stranger, that hath joined himself to the Lord, speak, saying, The Lord hath utterly separated me from his people." The Gentile is not segregated. They are united as one people with God's family. The verse also addresses the eunuch, who might say, "Behold, I am a dry tree." This is an ancient emblem of barrenness and uselessness. Historically, the law of Moses strictly enforced civil and religious disabilities against such individuals. Deuteronomy 23, verse 2, outlines severe exclusions from the congregation. Here, Isaiah completely removes those external barriers. The prophet brings all ranks and classes of society to the exact same level of spiritual privilege. Verses 4 through 6 explicitly state, "For thus saith the Lord unto the eunuchs that keep my Sabbaths, and choose the things that please me, and take hold of my covenant." The admission to full privilege is strictly conditioned on obedience to the Sabbath. While they lack a physical family to carry their lineage forward, they are promised an everlasting name and enduring hope in the Son of God. Verse 7 continues, "Even them will I bring to my holy mountain, and make them joyful in my house of prayer. Their burnt offerings and their sacrifices shall be accepted upon mine altar." This aligns with the eschatological vision of Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. "The mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and all nations shall flow unto it." Verse 8 summarizes the mandate. "The Lord God which gathereth the outcasts of Israel saith, Yet will I gather others to him, beside those that are gathered unto him." God is redefining his covenantal architecture. Participation is no longer based on bloodline or physical wholeness, but entirely on loyalty to his laws. With the standard of inclusion established, the text now pivots to a sharp reproof of the wicked. Verse 9 warns, "All ye beasts of the field come to devour." These beasts represent the devastating forces of Babylon and Rome. Verse 10 condemns the leadership. "His watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark, sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber." These self-styled prophets are entirely ignorant of the times. Rather than sounding the alarm, these leaders fail to give the people any warning regarding the real military and spiritual dangers threatening the nation. Verse 11 describes their motive. "Yea, they are greedy dogs which can never have enough, every one for his gain, from his quarter." They prioritize their own wealth and government positions over the survival of the people. Verse 12 captures their attitude of fatalistic indulgence. "Come ye," say they, "I will fetch wine, and we will fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as this day, and much more abundant." This mirrors the modern warning found in 2 Nephi chapter 28, verses 8 and 9, which describes deceptive, vain doctrines that instruct people to eat, drink, and be merry, nevertheless fear God. He will justify in committing a little sin. When watchmen prioritize their own luxury over spiritual vigilance, they guarantee the destruction of the very city they were appointed to protect. Isaiah 56 definitively establishes the ultimate dividing line. Inclusion in God's eternal covenant is dictated by faithful observance of his signs, rather than historical lineage or social status. The text constructs a severe contrast between the joyful acceptance of the obedient stranger and the devastating fate awaiting Judah's blind, self-serving leadership. True spiritual survival requires active, disciplined adherence to the laws and the Sabbath covenant. In the final judgment, God's house of prayer stands open to all who serve him, while the negligent are left to the beasts of the field. This concludes our overview.